The goal is not to create yourself a second job.
Active, when you're managing it, classifies it as passive, 100%. Hey everybody, welcome back to BK Hot Picks. This is Kenny Bedwell, the #1 property picker in the country, founder of STR Insights, and also an investor, just like you may or may not be. I'm an investor. I'm Bill Faith, founder of Build Short-Term Rental Wealth. I have been a real estate investor for, 31 years. That's probably almost as old as you are. What are you, like 35, 36?
33.
Oh my God. I think I did my first investment in 1992. How long ago is that?
That is 33 years ago.
You were born in 92?
Yes.
Oh my God. I graduated in 91. That's crazy. On this episode, Kenny, I want to talk about high income earners investing. I've been saying this for a long time. The STRs, short-term rentals, are the #1 asset for a high income earner to invest into. One, because of the cash flow is way stronger, long-term rents, and I think most people that are high income earners probably have that old investment influence of, hey, let's go do small apartments or something. Let's do long-term. We can generate way more cash flow out of short-term rentals. You also get way better tax benefits as well. We got the STR loophole, the big beautiful bill that President Trump passed. We've got 100% accelerated depreciation. And in most cases, you can even accelerate the depreciation, or not accelerate the appreciation, the way that you and I do it, right? So let's unpack that. And I want to kind of talk about the mental hurdles for these people to invest in the short-term rentals. One, they don't know what markets to invest into. Two, they don't have the time. Three, there's a lot of things that typically go into this, right? So market selection, underwriting, design, potentially construction, management, revenue management, marketing, guest communication, all that type of stuff. So let's just assume the audience listening today or watching on YouTube are high income earners and they don't have time to do this. #1, I'm going to tell you, if you don't have time, just comment time down below or on Instagram or YouTube or wherever, TIME, comment time. Kenny and I will reach out to you and give you a path to where you can invest passively, right? And I think I think about that. It's a huge deal as I've become wealthier and wealthier through this type of investing that I've started to spend less time of my own in this, right? You and I are in the middle of a syndication in a hotel, and all of those investors are passive. So a lot of people are looking for these things. I talk to them every day. I know you talk to them every day. We both work with people like this. What's the first thing that you would kind of start with for them?
Well, the first thing is the goal is not to create yourself a second job.
Correct.
And unfortunately, with short-term rentals, they're not passive income. It is very active, meaning there is managing of guests and
active. When you're managing it, IRS classifies it as passive, 100%.
Sure. And so I just like to be clear, like the level of involvement though of your part can be chosen, but a lot of people going into it now to get tax savings, there is a level of activity you have to be involved. So there, can be strategic about it, but a lot of people don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And they don't understand that you have to know how to price your property and you have to market. We spend a lot of time talking about marketing and taking the right photos and doing all this other stuff. And it's not just relying on your photographer, Joe Schmo, who takes real estate photography classes and all of a sudden shoots properties and he can shoot an STR. Like, he's probably not going to do a great job.
Right.
So there's a lot of like what you need to understand and prepare yourself. And I see a lot of like these high W-2 income earners or just high earners in general. They kind of just fall into things because they're rushing through the process and not educating themselves on, what the goal is, which is not to create a second job, but to create more time freedom for yourself, or flexibility at least.
Correct. I mean, there's a reason that the wealthiest people in our country are heavily, like millions and hundreds and millions and billions of dollars into real estate. Right. And I look at, there's 4 things that I look at, Kenny, you know this, but for those of you at home, I look at cash flow, appreciation, debt pay down, and tax benefits.
Yep.
And, I just released the book, Super Properties. How do you make $250,000 a year in 5 years with one upfront investment? And it's leveraging all of those things. Somebody, if you're a doctor, you're an orthopedic surgeon, or you're a dentist or a lawyer, an attorney, whatever, you're probably not going to have time to learn all of that type of stuff. And that's kind of where Kenny and I step in. We can help you with that. But if you do want to learn it, let's talk about some of those things that become super important. I think there's two huge things. Number one, you need to learn how to underwrite properties. And number two, you really need to understand the tax benefits of the short-term rental loophole, because they are massive compared to just accelerating depreciation or Section 179, or whatever comes along with it. But there's also some material participation that you have to do. So I think there's also timing becomes critical. Like, we're recording this in the latter part of July right now. And for those of you that are high income earners, right now is your time, because if you can start looking and then put something under contract and close in late September to late October, have enough time, even within your business, your job, to qualify for material participation, way easier to do that late Q3, early Q4 than it is buying in January or February, right? And imagine if you bought $1 million property that can generate $50,000 to $75,000 in net income, right? Going to take you a couple $100,000 to have to upgrade it, amenities, design, that type of stuff, and you have to be hands-on a little bit for the first part of the year, but then be hands-off going into 2026, right? You qualify for material participation. And that average property, not at the beach, North Carolina, Midwest, West Coast, non-California, super high land value, with 100% accelerated depreciation, if you're going to make any updates, it's probably going to yield you somewhere between 20 to 30% of purchase value.
Exactly.
So you're talking $200,000 to $300,000 tax benefit, right? Now, if you're making $300,000, $500,000, $1 million a year, that becomes critical. Are you ready to run your STR business like a real business? Baselane gives you everything you need in one place. Saves you hours every single month on your banking side and reconciling all the stuff that we all hate doing as STR owners in the back end in bookkeeping. Look, protect your money. You don't want to be mixing personal funds and property funds. That's a total rookie mistake. Baselane keeps you organized and your funds separate. It is the easy button if you're using Stessa or QuickBooks or any other component, and especially if you're a co-host or have multiple properties like me, because you can go in and you can add property after property after property and set everything up individually. Even when you go to Costco and you buy $300 worth of toilet paper for 3 properties at one time, one click, split, boom, it all gets assigned to the correct property. I've got a special deal for you from Baselane. All you have to do is start today and get a free $100 when you sign up for Baselane and fund your account, and they'll drop it right into your account when you get started. I'm going to let Kenny talk about this here in just a second, but I want to share something with you. I made the most money I've ever made in my life last year. I just filed my 2020 tax return 5 weeks ago, and I bought 3 properties in 2024. One of them was $570,000. Another one was $2.8 million. Another probably was around $900,000. And I made close to $4 million last year, just under. And I paid $121,000 in taxes. That's at 60% accelerated depreciation. Now it's 100%. Only reason for those of you that are high income earners that I still continue to level up my properties and buy new properties, and why I'm buying a $2.75 million property in 2 days, is because I need the tax benefits. But here's something I want every one of you to understand. You cannot this is a Ryan Bakeyism. You can't let the tax tail wag the investment dog. So you still have to, you're the best underwriter in the industry. Even Kenny was an OG in my mastermind. I've taught him a lot of shit, but I even go to you when I'm almost every property. Hey, Kenny, can you underwrite this? Can you take a look at? Because I want that assurance, right? I want that expertise. You have to nail underwriting. You have to nail property selection, market selection, and then really that design and amenity, the trifecta that you talk about a lot, and then the marketing, revenue management. And there's a lot that goes into it. And I think that's where high income earners miss, is they don't invest enough time in their research and their practice. So they end up making average investments. They get the tax benefits, but they're not taking advantage of the appreciation. They're not taking advantage of the cash flow.
Well, the other side of it is they try to offset by going to I call it the easy route, or chasing the herd, meaning you find realtors or lenders who can quote unquote help you underwrite, but you have to understand what motivates them. They're not underwriting for your goals. They're underwriting
To get the deal closed.
Yep. And now look, I'm not saying that realtors and lenders are trying to force you through deals that aren't going to make any money. That's not what I'm trying to say. But what I'm trying to say is when you look at people's motivations, if someone's commission driven, they're going to be pushing you through and saying, well, I know somebody else in the same market who bought a property and dumped in, X amount, and now they're making all this money. But there's not a whole lot of context or data behind that, just behind like a few case studies. So you have to be careful with that. And if you don't know how to underwrite, and if you don't know what to look for, you're just taking somebody else's word for it. And that's extremely risky. And so if you really want to protect your, future wealth building and getting off, doing this on the right foot, then you need to understand how to underwrite. I'm not saying don't go talk to a lender, go talk to a realtor. Like that's absolutely you should, but understand when to rely on people for certain things. And underwriting, I wouldn't rely on, a realtor or somebody who's motivated by commissions to do that for you. Be very, very smart about it and do your own research, do your own due diligence. I can't tell you how many times I've seen experienced realtors or even lenders and attorneys, people go under contract on and buy properties that can't legally be short-term rentals.
Right.
And they just took someone else's word for it. Or when this is one that's popped up a couple times and scary is the realtor, hey, can I STR this property? The realtor's like, yep, let me call. The city says you can. Great. They put it under contract. They close on the property. But while they were under contract, the city changed the rules. But nobody thought to check because they took the word of, the agent or whoever else who told them. And it wasn't like but ultimately it's not on the agent to do that due diligence. It's on the buyer.
I'm going to give you a real-time example of that.
Go ahead.
Real time, happening right now as we record this. Winter Park, Colorado.
Oh.
You know what's happening at Winter Park?
I don't know what's happening.
And this is part of the stuff that's not on AirDNA, not on STR Insights, right? So I've been looking at Winter Park for 2 weeks because 2 weeks ago, the city council, and I said I wasn't going to talk about this ever on the podcast for like 6 months, but I'm going to because I'm probably not going to invest there based on what's just happened.
Yeah.
And so that's the information that I leverage. Like I went into Whitefish because I did all this research that most traditional investors don't do. And I found what was happening in that market in the right price point, right? So Winter Park 2 weeks ago gets approved, $2 billion expansion, like gondola coming into downtown, around the Cooper area, all that type of stuff. 3 to 4 year plan, right? Mm-hmm. So I immediately start looking there and I find these places and I'm going to buy I have one property under contract. I just backed out yesterday because I just found out on Friday that Summit County just started a waiting list. Literally last week, whoever it is in the county, it's not like the city of Winter Park, but they started an STR permit waiting list. No. And it's like Kentucky or whatever. You can't apply until you own the property. And then, it's already like 4 to 6 months. So I'm going to miss all of ski season if I buy today, and I'm not guaranteed to get an STR permit. Does that make sense? So that scares me to not want to go to invest into that market. Does that make sense?
Right.
And an unbelievable early advantage if this doesn't pop up, knowing what I know to go into that market and gobble up around, that gondola. Mm-hmm. And I get, if you're watching this and affordable housing people, no, I'm not looking at buying something you would ever rent.
Right.
I'm not buying $300,000 properties that you're going to pay $1,800 a month rental income. I'm talking about buying $1 million 2-bedroom condos that'll probably be worth 1.5 to 1.7 when this is done, right? Those things also are not going to underwrite very well today. You'd still want to at least break even to 10%, that whole cash flow standpoint. And the tax benefits are also huge in condos because land value is so small. That information is what becomes critical. Those are the things that me and you are looking for. It's not just about the property. It's not just about what everybody else sees inside that market to find these unicorns on a consistent basis.
Right.
So the question becomes, if you're a high income earner and you're going to spend $200,000 or $500,000 or $1 million to get into short-term rentals on one or multiple properties, are you going to put in that effort? You've got a team of people that are doing this every day, right?
It's not just the city council changes. Could be the state. The good example, the state of Michigan. I don't
Should we talk about the state of Montana? Another one of my stories about the property tax. Did you see that?
So the state of Michigan recently classified the court case recently classified short-term rentals as commercial property.
Happened in Montana.
And so what does that mean? Well, for almost every property in Michigan, they all have a deed restriction that says the property can only be for single-family primary residential use only. So now that you have a short-term rental and it's considered commercial property by the state, neighbors can sue you and win, even if you've owned that property and had it as a legal short-term rental with the city or municipality for many years, if they don't want you to be an STR. And so we had that situation where somebody went and bought a property in Michigan, and then their neighbor went and sued them because there was a deed restriction, and nobody else, the realtor, the attorney, and this is happening all over the place. It's not just in Michigan. I've seen it in North Carolina, I've seen it in Kentucky, I've seen it in Texas. But the thing though is if you don't understand that, you're opening yourself up to some risk.
100%. That just happened in Montana, Kenny. It passed in January, February this year. That big property I'm purchasing right now is zoned commercial. That's one of the reasons I'm buying that property. But the flip side of that is they just passed 3 weeks ago, out-of-state investors that are doing rental properties, long-term, mid-term, short-term, are now paying an additional 2% tax.
Oh, wow.
Think about that. I'm closing on a $2.75 million property. That's going to cost me $50,000 in additional property tax annually. I had to underwrite that. That's going to make it very, very challenging for people to invest in the state of Montana.
Yeah.
And that's for everybody that owns in Big Sky, Bozeman, wherever, now starting in 2026. I literally could walk you upstairs onto my kitchen counter and you'll see 4 letters that are laid out all from the tax division of the state of Montana, reassessing my properties for 2026.
Dang.
That's the stuff. You know this stuff. I know this stuff. That's the things that you guys out there listening and watching have to know before you make an investment. Actually, buy $1 million property in Montana, and people are following me into Whitefish, right? And then, oh my gosh, I've got another $20,000 in property tax I didn't factor into my underwriting. Now you've got a problem.
Yep. So recently I built this out because I was just people keep doing these things and they're not asking the right questions. So I built out a 4-page PDF. Now when I say built out, it's literally just bullet points, but it's 4 pages of bullet points of all the questions you need to ask yourself, or in my experience that I've seen in scenarios of the due diligence process.
Right.
And I still feel like it doesn't cover everything because, you have inspections and all these other things, but it goes through and the regulations, the taxes, the insurance.
Right.
That's another avenue too that we could talk about in markets like Florida, where insurance rates are tripling in some places.
Did you see what I posted in my Facebook group? It was $41,000 for insurance.
Holy crap. Yeah.
Another reason I backed out of that property.
Well, yeah.
I couldn't underwrite it.
Right. Yeah, it just, those are the things that people, and when you think about it, when you're buying, a lot of people wait to figure out insurance until after they're already through the due diligence period.
Right.
And so it's like,
that brings up a great point. You just talked about the due diligence period, right? Which varies. Could be 5 days, could be 15 days. I won't typically, if I have a bigger property, I typically won't do anything less than 10 business days or 15 days. It's way more than inspection, right? So you brought up insurance. You better get your insurance quotes immediately. And I think I have this checklist. I talk about contract to close is the most important time, right? Did that in our accelerator, do it in my inner circle. The 2 things that are fundamental for me are insurance that you mentioned, and then the other thing is cost seg quote. Not cost for a cost seg, but I use John Howard at CSSI. I literally send him the link to the property, what I plan on renovating, spending room by room so he can have an understanding. So that way he can get me back what that cost seg benefit's going to be as I'm doing my underwriting inside of due diligence.
Yep.
I also get a contractor in there doing due diligence. So home inspection, contractor, insurance, cost seg quote, non-negotiable for me in due diligence. If I can't get it done in time, I have to extend due diligence.
Right.
As a buyer.
Yep. I'll add taxes, which you talked about earlier. And then also what we talked about earlier too, regulation as well, like making sure and calling and man, I just people, it's don't take someone else's word for it. Get it in writing, pick up the phone and call the municipality. Like get an answer.
I would take that one step farther. So when Bree and I first started looking in Montana, we flew out to Bozeman to look at a place in Paradise Valley. Agent said, "Oh yeah, everybody VRBOs out here. You can do it." Okay, cool. We stayed the night. We walked into the city of Bozeman into planning the next day because there was nothing on the website about and most municipalities don't post their regulation, right? So we walked in. She's like, "That's zone whatever. Yeah, you can do it now, but they have zones within the county, right? But it's probably going to get passed from city council to where you can't." And I'm like, "Where can I read this?"
Yeah.
And they wouldn't give me any documentation on it. They're like, "We have a book." I said, "Well, why isn't it on your website?" "Well, we just don't, they're not up to speed." She was really nice. And I'm like, "Well, can I get a copy?" "No, you can look at it, but I'm not allowed to give you the book." So I started just taking photos. And then she got kind of upset that we were taking photos. Long story short, we couldn't get a straight answer. So we did not invest.
Oh, 100%. Yep. I've
Too risky.
gone through that before
and
too.
Most people, like you said earlier, aren't even walking in. So number one, don't trust the person you talk to at the county just on a phone call. You need to see the regulation. Two, don't ever trust your real estate agent. No disrespect to real estate agents, but you want to do this firsthand, in my opinion.
Right. Because they can't, I mean, ultimately, you can say stuff about them online, or leave a bad review if something were like that to happen. But
they don't care.
The reality is, right, they don't care. It's not on them. It's on you. And you signed something that says that in your buyer agent's agreement. So you just got to be careful with those things. You got to know what your part is when you're working with these people, and they're professionals and they have lots of experience. Even professionals, even with people with experience, they mess up sometimes, or they miss things sometimes. I've seen that a lot. And so you just want to go take the extra step and visually see the words that you can legally STR a particular property.
There's some great agents out there. I mean, honestly, I'm using one here, Kirkland Powell. I don't know if you've ever met him. If not,
I know Kirkland
he's
well. Yeah,
phenomenal, and he's so young, but he does so much due diligence. But so I have him. I'm looking in all counties around Nashville, and it's been so challenging since December. I've been looking, and he will call them. He'll get the answer. He'll get access to the information if it's not on the site. Then he'll give me a summary in a text message, and then screenshots or PDFs and circle it of where the regulation is so I can see it. Does that make sense? Most agents won't go that far. And here's the thing that I think is super important for you. When you guys are, once again, investing $200, $500, $1 million in cash, you need to have a guy like Kirkland Powell, right? Because you're probably not going to take the time to do that. Trust and verify. There's a lot of mediocre agents that wouldn't even dream of going that far, to help somebody. So I think your vetting process of agents, just like Kenny's vetted agents, I've vetted agents. I've got great agents. I've used Avery's team multiple times. I've got Lauren in Montana. I've got, Kirkland here. Got agents all over the country, but they've been curated and vetted, on your side, on my side. I call you. If I don't have an agent someplace, you're always the first call that I make, right? Because you have those people. But you still have to trust and verify, and always, always get the documentation. There's way too many instances of what you talked about happening in these markets.
Yeah, I agree.
The same thing goes for the underwriting. Let's talk about that, because a lot of these agents, I see them in all these Facebook groups. Oh, here's a property that's X amount of dollars, and if you do these upgrades, it'll do this amount of revenue. Well, what they don't take into account, how good is the person buying this at marketing? How good is the person buying this at revenue management? Those are the two critical skills. Even when you do have everything designed at the highest level, amenitized, all that type of stuff, how good at this person is copywriting for their listing or telling a story or whatever that is. There's so many factors that go into being successful. And we're not saying this to scare you away and not do it. You just, depends on what level you want to make that investment, what you're expecting and your expectations. Don't trust the numbers from anybody outside of doing your own research, in my opinion. I think too many people underwrite. I like when I sell a property, I don't give my numbers away. Like you go post in the STR homes for sale group, first send me the numbers. Yeah. It is so not relevant from the seller to the buyer, right? Buyer could be better or worse depending on those numbers. I never ask for property management numbers. I never ask for seller numbers when I buy. What's your stance on that? I see a lot of investors making big mistakes following those numbers without underwriting on their own through data.
But here's the thing. I'll say this statement. Rarely, I do ask for the numbers because it's not for the revenue.
Right.
It's for the expenses. Because that's where a lot of people we get.
Oh, I ask for that all the time.
Yeah. So I want the expenses. But rarely do I find a property that what I call, or John Hodge always says that, doesn't have, rarely do I find a property that doesn't have a story, as to why they're not doing like, oh, well, they shut down for a few months because of X, Y, and Z and, renovating or updating. And now they're trying to sell it and, buy a bigger investment property. That's what they always say. But there's always like some story as to why the numbers aren't as good.
Every single short-term rental that is being sold for one of two reasons. Either it's operating illegally or can't get a permit, or it's underperforming. It's that simple.
Yeah.
They would hold on to the property unless somebody passed away, inherited it, and then is going to sell it, right? And I know that could be a controversial opinion for people out there.
You might have somebody who, like, for example, me, I'm thinking about selling my lake property to upgrade into a bigger lake property, but because I did a return on equity
I do that
audit,
all the time, but I'm saying that's the very small, most STRs that are being sold because they're underperforming STRs.
Right. And even me selling my property, it's a great performing property, but the reality is I'm going to be selling it at a lot more than what I bought it for. Yep. So it's a great performing property for me now, but for somebody else, it'll be good, but it ain't going to be as good as what I was doing with it.
That's my point.
So, and that, yes. And to his point, that's correct. So,
and the other problem with that is it's already designed, amenitized, all that type of stuff. So the new buyer's paying for that, right? As opposed to when you bought
paying a premium, right?
100%, right? And paying a premium becomes very challenging to create that cash flow.
Yep.
At the level that we want it in a short-term rental investment.
Right.
Cool. What else should these high-income earners be looking
Well, that
for?
Was all about acquisition. It has nothing to do with operations. I mean,
let's unpack operations, because I think that's the biggest struggle for them, right? If you're that high W-2, you're an entrepreneur. I mean, I've got 7 businesses right now. I know you're running multiple businesses. I've got multiple short-term rentals. This godforsaken conference, one of the reasons I'm not doing it anymore, just takes too much time. But it takes time and effort. I mean, I see all these people selling courses and masterminds and stuff, and I do the same thing, because let's talk about, managing 50 doors in 4 hours a week. You cannot do that effectively.
No.
And when you give everything to Filipino VAs or overseas VAs, awesome. You know why? Because that creates opportunity. I will outperform them on revenue management. I will outperform them on marketing. That's why I do a lot of my stuff hands-on, except for I have just given 100% of all my revenue management away to Emil.
Yeah.
Emil Sekel, best revenue manager in the industry. And these are things that you can do. But if you're either going to need a co-host, a revenue manager, somebody to help you with this, if you're not going to be able to be active. As you said earlier, there's active and passive. It's a passive IRS component, but you need to be active in the listing to ascend to that top level. If you're fine at 50, 75%, you can get away with it. Automate messaging, VAs, that type of stuff. But if you really want to be at the top, it becomes an active business.
I think it's important to break down the key components of the operations side. And if I miss one, throw it out there. Let's tag team this. So there's pricing and revenue management. There's guest messaging, marketing.
And number 1 and number 3 are the 2 most important in my opinion.
All right.
But that messaging, let's unpack that for a second, because shit hits the fan at the worst time.
Yep.
How many times have you been sitting down to dinner or getting ready to jump on a plane or in church or whatever, and you see the message, I'll wait till out, and then you pull it up and it's like water heater broke, have whatever, it's something that you have to address right then and there. It's always during something.
I'm waiting for something to happen at the wealth conference, but I've got my team on standby. I'm not kidding. Last year, something happened, and the year before that, and I was like, this year, I called my team up. I said, this week, something's going to happen. Who do we have? Do we have the maintenance guy ready? Just in case. So
man, it is always the worst timing.
I know it is.
I'm literally in Detroit with Matt Prince, who's one of my students and an investor. He's one of the top orthopedic surgeons up there. My daughter's shadowing with him. And literally when we go to dinner with him and his family, when we got up there the night before she starts, he gets an issue at his property in Colorado.
Wow.
Right? I can say almost every time Bree and I go on vacation, there's an issue.
Yep.
Right? Just always. It could be septic, it can be anything. And I'm not talking like something small. It's when the big stuff,
Right.
pops up. Unfortunately, these problems just seem to follow. They just seem to happen at the worst times.
They do. So having the right operational team is really important.
100%. Okay, so I cut you off. I know you're used to but revenue management, marketing, operation.
Guest messaging. But yeah.
Guest messaging.
Yeah. And then I would say, so like,
you got to manage your whole team on the ground, cleaners, electricians, plumbers, handymen, all that type of stuff.
Your boots on the ground.
Bookkeeping.
Maybe we'll think of another one as we're like kind of going through here, but
taxes.
Sure.
Taxes are different. The other thing is tax strategy. Tax strategy is a huge deal for high income earners, right? And that's something I know that you're really good at. We didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Select last night. We're not CPAs. We have Ryan Bakey, who was on our super team. He's awesome. I've learned so much about tax more about tax than I ever want to know as a real estate investor. And I think that's something that they need to know as well. And that takes research time and, to be able to commit to that.
Yeah, I agree. But so we'll start with all those. In my opinion, for those who are busy, I work with a lot of high net worth individuals or W-2 income earners, like doctors, physicians, like just people who are a lot of tech people too. The way I think of it is like with the operational side is almost like you're a contractor and you know nothing about, putting in electrical and plumbing and painting and all this, and maybe just this example. And so sub out each of the roles individually. I do not like going straight to a co-host, somebody who can do it all for me, because number one, they're going to charge 20%. Mm-hmm. Number two, if you're quote unquote, trying to do everything, you're like a master of nothing, right? And so I have revenue managers for all my properties. I can do revenue management. I'm really good at revenue management for my properties when I take the time to do it, but I just don't have the time. I can't be consistent. If you can't be consistent with things, then you have to have someone to manage it for you, but you don't need them. The way to get around all this, property management, the 20% or whatever they're going to charge, is to sub out each of those individual roles.
Correct. I agree. But also guest management, right?
Yeah.
I think that guest communication is a big one that becomes super critical, right? Because timing for that is really important. And it's not necessarily, there's an algorithm optimization side of it, but there's also just guest happiness.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, my best cleaner I have in the country, we have a 12 bedroom. There's like 34 people there that are there right now. And literally Fenton is the name of the guest. I got a message at like 11:30 last night, and we only have 5 washcloths, and that's not common. It's my best cleaner I have anywhere in the country. Usually Bria does all the ordering, but I immediately went to, and this is a very remote lake, Smith Lake, and I went to Walmart, only place that will deliver, saw what they have, not what I want, and not that we'll ever use them outside of taking care of this guest. And by 6:15, I have a solution. I ordered like 2 packs of 10 to where there's like 20 washcloths. They're going to be delivered by 9:30 in the morning. And so I ordered them. I screenshotted the order. I messaged him, apologize, literally show him the screenshot. They're going to be here by this time. Let him know this is my best cleaning crew in the entire country. I have these all over the place. They made a mistake. I'm the owner. I'm going to own it, right? All before 6:15, 6:30 in the morning. So what happens if I'm in surgery as a doctor or whatever, and I can't get to it till noon? That guest is thinking about that all morning, that this guy has not responded to me. Yeah. Does that make sense? So I think being able to take that swift action, I don't live that life because I'm an entrepreneur and I'm always accessible. Even when I fly, on the rare occasion, I don't have Wi-Fi, but most of the time I'm always connected. I'm the guy, I ski and snowboard a lot, and I check my phone every time I get on the chair. And it's because of that stuff. If you don't want that life, I want to be hands-on, I want to do that, then you need to hire somebody. I use STR Super VA to get all of my VAs. I was
about to say, I was going to say VAs. I mean, most of our physicians, they all have a VA 100%. And they manage. Now, what the VA does for you is really important. In my opinion, I think VAs are best served for doing guest messaging
Correct.
and handling those emergency situations, but they have to be able to know how to manage those situations.
In sales, I call it my objection library, where, you know, in sales here, you have all your prospect objections, and then you have, you know, the answers lined out, the objection overcomes lined out with it. I look at that with guests too. So I did that when I hired my first VA to start interacting with guests. I do the majority of it, but I do have somebody to back me up at night now. And I just went through and I looked at all those. Wi-Fi's down. How do I reset the router? You know, don't have enough washcloths. What do I do? Now, there's no way I'm going to have a VA is going to be able to go to Walmart, source washcloths. So you got to really determine what they can and they can't do. So if you think if by then logic, right, with your VAs, if this happens, then you do this, right? And that's kind of what I build out for them, you know, as a structure to try to follow.
That manages 3 of our properties in terms of not revenue, not bookkeeping,
just
not
messaging,
social media, just
guest communication
and guest experience.
VA, if there's an issue that involves a cleaner or a handyman, what's that process? Do they come to you for that? Or is there a level of, hey, you can reach out to the cleaner if we need them to come back and bring more towels, or if they missed something under a bed or something like that? How do you determine that with your VAs? Don't want to get too granular, but I think they need to know this.
My like just general rule of thumb is if it isn't something that's like broken or someone is hurt on the property, I believe a VA can handle it. Meaning like if it's a cleaning issue, if it's a supplies issue, we all have contingency plans. So thankfully, most of my properties aren't like that remote. So we have, you know, Instacart, Amazon Prime Delivery, all these things. Cleaners can go and handle things.
I've got a lot of remote stuff. I can't get that
I know.
stuff.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of benefit here, but I mean, the VA can handle that. And they also have the contact information of the handyman and the cleaner and everyone. But if something's broken or there's like an emergency, then they have to let us know.
And there's also they're new. I don't think I think they're good now, and they're going to get better quickly. Like Host Buddy and Bestie, Bestie, and that type of stuff.
The AI messaging.
The AI messaging apps are going to get better and better as Grok and ChatGPT and all of these things improve and they start implementing that stuff. Just want to bring this up for you guys that are super busy, that can't get away to do that type of stuff. If you can nail these things that we talked about, you can do that on your own. If you don't want to do it on your own, you don't have that time or you don't want to go through that exercise, then just comment time down below or above us, depending on what platform you're on. Kenny and I will either reach out to you personally or have somebody on our team reach out to you. We can put you with the right people based on what you want with your desired outcome.
Yep.
And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join us on the next episode of BK Hot Picks.
We'll see you there.